Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Man, listen. If Donald Trump stole the last election, I don't think he has to steal anything this election because it will be given to him. Now, if you check out Snopes.com, you will see that they do fact checking. So they check facts. Okay? If there's a rumor out there, they'll check it out and they'll let you know if it's true or if it's false. This statement from Joe Biden will guarantee Joe Biden never gets the presidential election. Here's why. Do you remember when Hillary Clinton said her super predator comment? And her super predator comment was taken way out of context. However, calling children super predators was somehow turned into her calling all black children super predators, which of course made every black person who came across that turn against her or withdraw their support from her, right? Now, as far as this new election coming up goes, it's my prediction already that Donald Trump will definitely be the next president of the United States again for 4 more years. Joe Biden. Snopes said, did Joe Biden say this comment? The comment was that Joe Biden said he did not want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. Now we're talking about, this comment was made at a time when busing meaning taking a school bus to a different zone than where you live as a kid to go to a school that is outside of your zone. And they started doing the whole busing thing when they were working on integrating schools. So this was back in the 70s probably. Joe Biden apparently was very much against integrating schools. He was against busing. Now we could say he was against busing, or he was trying to say that we needed to deal with it in a different manner. But at the end of the day, he was against busing. So the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate's history with busing has haunted him on the campaign trail. Former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden once said that he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle, quote unquote, racial jungle, in regards to desegregation. Now you must know, segregation means there was a time in our history where schools were for whites only, and then you had schools that were for blacks. Just like how you had the water fountains that black people could not drink from them, but white people could, and they had a different water fountain or a different watering point for black people. So in the 1970s, then Senator Joe Biden, he was a senator back then, he was a vocal opponent of busing as a means for desegregating public schools. That was the plan of the government, to use busing to take some children from the hood into the suburbs to go to school. Many could say that the schools in the suburbs where it was predominantly white were better funded by the government and therefore had more resources, so they taught the children better and the children were able to excel farther than those children who were from the inner city or rurals or from the hood. That record haunts him in his bid to secure the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination. His stance: In early March 2020, readers asked Scope to verify a quote in 1977 in which Biden was then a U.S. Senator representing Delaware, where he allegedly expressed fear that desegregation, if not done in an orderly way, could result in his children growing up in a racial jungle, with tensions having built so high that it is going to explode at some point. So, similar to what the Donald Trump administration did during the last election, where they took Hillary Clinton's comment about super predators and they said she called all black kids super predators. That's all people needed to know. They went, they did a little bit of research, and they found out that she actually did say the phrase super predators, but they did not read the entire context in which it was said. Well, I am afraid to tell you, but that is exactly what is going to haunt Joe Biden in this election, because his comment about racial jungle. But if you are being balanced, you can actually see what Joe Biden was saying, because at the time, there were many entities out there, to include hate groups, Ku Klux Klan, and many white groups that were willing to fight and hurt people of color in a bid to get them to leave their neighborhoods, to not come to their neighborhoods, to not go to the same schools, to not dine in the same facilities, etc., etc. And Joe Biden was saying that if we do not approach it in a more controlled way, in a more orderly way was his exact term, if we just start taking these buses, bus loads of kids from the hood, the ghetto, the other side of town, and bringing them and dumping them into the suburbs where it's predominantly white, just to go to school, people are going to rise up, and it might not be a good thing. It'll be a racial jungle with tensions, quote unquote. He said it would be a racial jungle with tensions having built up so high that is going to explode at some point. I see perfect sense in that when you read the entire piece of what he actually said. Now, the quote was initially uncovered by Daria, a law professor at the University of Southern California, in July of 2019. But as Biden emerged from Super Tuesday on March 3rd, 2020, as a potential frontrunner for the nomination, news stories containing the quote circulated anew. They started putting them out again. Among stories readers widely shared was a July 15th, 2019 Business Insider story that reported former Vice President Joe Biden is facing increased scrutiny over his record on busing and racial issues. And this week-old comments resurfaced, in which he said in 1977 that busing for the purpose of desegregation would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle. The quote is inaccurate, as reported and read, and reads in full. The quote is inaccurate, but I'm afraid they're going to use it against him, and no one's actually going to go look at the full quote. Even so, just the fact that he said racial jungle, people are going to think, turn off. Unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a racial jungle. The jungle being a racial jungle with tensions having built up so high that it is going to explode at some point. We have got to make some moves on this, he said. We contacted the Joe Biden campaign for comments, but we received no response in time for this publication. Biden made the remark in 1977 during a hearing about busing school children in order to desegregate public schools. As the New York Times reported in a detailed delineation of Biden's story with busing, Biden at the time had emerged as the Democratic Party's crusader against busing, taking the side as segregationist. He took the side as a segregationist. Biden joined up with Jesse Helms, the segregationist senator from North Carolina. And I can tell you, you can go look up Jesse Helms now and you will be, you'll be like, yeah, definitely no votes for Biden. So he joined up with Jesse Helms, who is a segregationist senator from North Carolina, to offer his own anti-busing amendments to that year's education spending bill. Biden's advocacy made it safe for other Democrats to oppose busing. Biden's advocacy made it safe for other Democrats to oppose busing, the Times reported. Wow. The Times further reported that Biden said or sided with Helms in 1975. This part right here got me. The Times further reported that Biden sided with Helms. This is the same Jesse Helms I'm telling you to go look up. Sided with Helms in 1975 when the latter proposed to strip the federal government's power to withhold funding from school districts that refused to comply with racial equality measures. Wow. So let me explain that to you. The federal government has the power to fund schools and strip funding from schools who go against a certain protocol. At that time, segregation and integration was the issue. There were people that wanted to be segregated and to remain segregated, and then there were people that wanted us to integrate, to live together, for our children to be able to go to school, and you'll see black kids, you'll see white kids, you'll see Hispanic children, you'll see Asian children, just a mixture of people, and they'll all be able to be treated equally and be taught with the same vigor and be able to learn, given an even opportunity. And Biden went against that. He went to the side of the segregationist. The Times further reported that Biden sided with Helms in 1975 and went as far as to propose to strip the federal government's power to withhold funding from the schools that refused to comply with racial equality measures. So the government has said, well, we want to integrate the schools and we want to have a country where the schools are integrated. And they said no. And Biden said, well, let's strip power from the government so they are not able to defund the schools who don't want to segregate or who don't want to integrate, who want to remain segregated, whites only, that type of stuff. Blacks stay over there. Wow. And this is, based on that comment, I gotta tell you that I believe that this is the downfall of Biden. Let me tell you something else. I was sitting here because somebody said to me, hey man, you know that Biden has dementia or signs of dementia because he rambles in the middle of a speech and goes totally off course, start talking about children sitting on his lap and playing with his leg hairs and all kinds of stupid stuff. And I had to go look it up. And when I did, I binge watched and counted too many videos where it does seem like Joe Biden actually is not competent to stand there. And I don't think he can survive a presidential debate with the current president, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is able to speak for 90 minutes straight, entertain a crowd standing at a microphone. You might not like some of the things he is saying. You might not like, or you might not believe they're true, or he might be fibbing, or he might be twisting stories, but he is able to stand and engage the crowd and speak and answer questions, and however he replies, but he is able to do it. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has reduced his speaking time to as little as 7 minutes, and his team, I think they are afraid to put him in front of a camera because they themselves are realizing that here's a senior citizen that actually we are witnessing dementia in action. So with his mental being compromised or being questionable or being questioned, his mental state, along with this comment about his children growing up in a hostile jungle or in a racial jungle, quote unquote, then Biden is never going to be president. I don't think he is. And at the end of the day, we have two candidates. It's Biden and it's Donald Trump. A lot of people don't want a Donald Trump again, and many people have expressed that they would choose anybody. I've heard people say, man, I would choose my grandmother. But I don't think when it comes down to it, people are actually going to weigh the options and say, yes, I want a man who seems to not be in control of his mental faculties, seems to be suffering from dementia or some type of cognitive issues, and also made that type of a comment about his children growing up in a racial jungle. He supported segregation, and he was against integration of schools through busing at some point. He even tried to strip the federal government of being able to defund schools who refused to comply with racial equality measures by integrating the schools. So he is never going to be president. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about this one. Are you going to be voting in the coming election? And if you are, the presidential election, is it going to be Biden for you, or is it going to be Donald Trump again for you? Now remember, we only have two choices. So I don't want to hear about Bernie. I don't want to hear about anybody else. Let's focus on the two choices we have, because that is all we have. Let me hear or see your comments in the comment section below. It's SouFLoTV, and don't forget to subscribe to my other channel, which is SouFLoTV on YouTube. And I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out. Peace.